He's just abandoned a lot of people.
Well, I mean, he's abandoned people, but also just things he stood by and said very loudly and very effectively on the campaign trail. I mean, the currency manipulator thing is one. Obviously, NATO's obsolete. Now it's not obsolete, even though nothing really has changed with NATO. It's just the president has changed. But he doesn't even acknowledge that he's changed. I keep thinking about the other Republican candidates who were against him in the primary, who, were kind of, had policy positions and were sort of trying to be presidential and stand by positions. And Donald Trump, very effectively, obviously, but was able to basically just kind of take some very extreme positions and kind of make fun of the others, but now has adopted the very positions he ran against and effectively won against.
This is so far, I mean, I can't speak for tomorrow, but today, so far, it's not my worst nightmare. My worst nightmare was that the president would turn to Steve Bannon and he'd go down this populist, burn it to the ground ideology. The good news is he's not going that way. But the next question is, where is he going? Is he going left? Is he going, he's not going conservative. And who is he going to have left in the end? Who's going to believe him? This is why I warned my audience and America that he doesn't have a core. He goes for the win. And that can be dangerous if things start to fall apart economically or, in the world. But tonight, at least, it looks, the president is on the verge of beginning to look like another Republican who said stuff, didn't mean it, and turned into Reince Priebus or Paul Ryan. And that's not good. But I remembered, Anderson, what President Bush said to me. I was in the Oval Office the day that candidate Obama said that he would just fly over the borders in Pakistan, and if he had to, he would bomb Pakistan. And I remember at the time, Pakistan was a very important ally for us, and I remember thinking, my gosh, you don't bomb an ally. And this took on real weight because it was said by the president, and he pointed to his desk in the Oval Office. And he said, don't worry, whoever occupies that seat behind that desk, man or woman, will quickly find out that their hands are tied and they'll end up doing almost exactly as I have done.
The Tomahawk is considered the world's most advanced cruise missile. It's been used in combat more than 2,000 times by the U.S. Navy, from Syria to Sudan to Serbia. And all of the new Tomahawks come out of one factory, this one, in a city and state we've been asked not to reveal for security reasons. The 20-foot-long Tomahawks are manufactured by the Raytheon Company. Kim Ernzen is one of Raytheon's top missile executives.
And this is the final configuration before it goes out the door to our customer. In this facility is where we do the integration of the rocket motors and the warheads, what we call the energetics elements of the missiles. Other components and subassemblies come from our other factories located here, and then we do the final assembly here, test it, fuel it, and get it ready to go out the door.
How soon will these be going out the door?
In the next couple of days.
In this factory, 14 Tomahawks are about to be shipped out. Workers here are performing what they call a roll test to make sure there is nothing loose inside the missile and that everything is connected properly. Raytheon's contract with the Navy is for 196 missiles for this year.
Tomahawk can fly 1,000 plus miles, so it can get launched from a ship or a submarine. It can go up and loiter, as we call it, where it can fly around in a figure 8.
So in other words, once it's sent off, if you want to change where it's going,
Absolutely.
It loiters, it just goes in a circle and you figure out where.
It can be redirected and rerouted to a specific target.
The Tomahawk has been around since the 1980s, but this is the newest version of the missile, manufactured since 2004. It can be used for up to 30 years, and Tomahawks that haven't been used come back after 15 years for recertification and upgrades.
So this is the rocket motor that launches it out of the vertical launch system. So it is what propels it out. So when you see the footage of a missile coming out of a ship, it is the plume that gets it out of that vertical launch. And as you move more up toward the front is the navigation, communication system, and then ultimately up here at the very end is the warhead, and it is a 1,000-pound warhead.
With their GPS guidance, the Tomahawks can strike within mere feet of a target. They are launched from ships or submarines.
If it comes from a submarine, it will then swim through the water. The rocket motor will take it up out of the water, and then we'll eventually get it up into the airplane mode, which is where it will fly and perform its mission from there.
So it swims and it flies.
Swims and it flies.
The price tag per missile, about $1.1 million. Each Tomahawk weighs about 3,500 pounds. So when 60 of them were fired towards Syria, that was about 210,000 pounds of firepower. People who work here tell us this isn't just a job.
It is an honor to be able to work for the men and women in uniform and to be able to supply them with a competitive advantage when they're put in harm's way. And that's what we do. We make sure that they have an unfair advantage out in theater.
So that's what you say, that this gives the U.S. military an unfair advantage?
Absolutely. And we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, there is no sound on this, but you can see there, I guess, the
very large impact of that. I think that's the aftermath right there. We're going to re-rack it and show it one more time. Spider, you in particular, if you can watch this and tell us what we're seeing as we're seeing it here, Spider.
Yeah, first of all, notice the terrain. It's very restrictive. So when you have a concussive blast like that, it's going to be contained within an increasingly smaller area. So the force and the blast is just exacerbated based on where it's striking. Also bear in mind, this was a tunnel complex. So again, as that shock wave goes underground and gets into those different tunnels, it's constricted, and you can only imagine anybody who's down there is now turned to dust.
It's hard to see on the video there, but we know that this fell into a deep mountain valley. There's mountain ridges surrounding the area, and this complex of caves and tunnels was deep in a valley surrounded by these steep mountains. So it's one of the ways that they could keep an eye on the target in the days leading up to this and try to ensure that there were no civilians in the area. That shot you see right there is a better look at this region, which is so mountainous and so remote. So it falls into this deep mountain valley, and the mountains surrounding it certainly, I think you can say, would have absorbed some of the blast, which also would have kept damage contained from any other civilian areas nearby. There are, at a distance, some villages, some areas where there are people, but troops on the ground this morning say they see no signs of civilian casualties.
This stunning desert panorama in the southwestern United States is the largest Native American reservation in the country. Spread across 3 states, the vastness and remoteness of the Navajo Nation reservation makes it incredibly challenging, even dangerous for law enforcement. A territory larger than the size of West Virginia, patrolled by a police force with a fraction of the resources and officers of its bordering counties.
They were probably working with half the staff that other police departments work with, and twice the area. So the struggles out there and the hurdles they have to go through is immense, but they still go out there and do it every day, despite the dangers, despite not having backup close by.
Last month, one of their officers, Houston Largo, was the only officer responding to a domestic violence call when he was shot and killed by an armed suspect.
He was like their baby brother. He was always there. He was full of life, full of humor. They always kept them going, and they'll miss him greatly because he was one of the hardest working and most dedicated officers there.
Largo, a highly decorated officer and also a volunteer firefighter, is just one of 3 Navajo officers killed on duty in fewer than 2 years.
Most police chiefs and most police departments don't lose officers that often in that short amount of time.
It's just devastating. It really hits you right here in the heart.
At Officer Largo's funeral, the president of Navajo Nation, Russell Begay, gave a heartfelt message he wants people to hear.
Remember that in that uniform, behind that badge, there's a person that is loved and honored, respected by many people. I want you just to remember that.
A message that reaches far beyond Navajo Nation.
We need to recognize that these are real people with families, with children, with spouses, with mom, dad. We need to teach our children to respect and honor law enforcement while they are young, so when they grow up, when they see a police officer, they will be thankful that somebody is there protecting them.
Boris Sanchez, CNN, Window Rock, Arizona.